Ukraine just launched a missile strike on a Russian fuel train. At first, it looked like the convoy had no chance of being stopped. But what happened in the next 10 minutes shocked everyone watching and changed the balance of logistics on the front line. At 4:20 a.m., Ukrainian forces fired a coordinated missile strike against a Russian military fuel train moving near Bryansk. The train carried dozens of tanker cars filled with diesel, a lifeline for Russian T-90 tanks, BMP infantry fighting vehicles, and artillery systems across the Donbass sector. For Russia, it was just another routine supply run. For Ukraine, it was a target prepared days in advance. The sky was quiet, the rail line looked secure, and the convoy moved with headlights dimmed to avoid detection. But from space, Ukrainian satellites had already locked onto it. Analysts from the main intelligence directorate tracked the train's loading at its point of origin the night before. Drones kept watch as it crossed the Bryansk corridor. Special Forces spotters hidden nearby confirmed the exact position. Every calculation, every step, was designed to ensure the strike would hit when the train was most vulnerable. Loaded, in transit, and on a straight stretch of track where escape was impossible. The opening shots came from a battery of HIMARS launchers stationed across the border. Guided rockets armed with high-explosive warheads streaked through the night sky, their trajectories hidden under radar jamming. Within seconds, the first missiles slammed into the lead locomotives, tearing metal apart in a flash of sparks and fire. The rear section of the train was hit almost simultaneously, derailing the last cars and sealing the convoy in place. With both ends destroyed, the train was trapped in the middle of the track, unable to move forward or backward. Russian guards stationed along the line scrambled in panic as explosions echoed down the corridor. Searchlights swung wildly, but the attack was only beginning. The destruction of the lead and rear cars created a perfect kill zone. Dozens of fuel tankers, packed with volatile diesel, now sat exposed on the rails. Ukrainian commanders had deliberately designed the first salvo not to destroy the entire train, but to immobilize it. That left the bulk of the fuel as stationary targets, waiting for the next strike. Russian radio chatter filled the airwaves as officers called for reinforcements and air defense coverage, but Ukraine's electronic warfare units were already jamming frequencies. Static replaced coordination. Panic spread quickly as soldiers realized they were sitting next to giant fuel bombs about to ignite. Then came the second wave. Long-range Storm Shadow cruise missiles, launched from Ukrainian aircraft, sliced across the border at low altitude. Designed for precision strikes against hardened infrastructure, they were overkill against rail tankers, but devastating all the same. The missiles locked onto infrared signatures of the fuel cars, striking directly into the convoy's center. The explosions ripped through steel, sending massive fireballs high into the night sky. Shockwaves blasted through the valley, shattering windows in villages nearly 10 kilometers away. The fuel ignited instantly, turning the train into a rolling inferno. Columns of smoke rose hundreds of meters, visible from across the Ukrainian border. The convoy that had started as Russia's fuel lifeline was now a burning wreck, trapped and collapsing under precision firepower. The firestorm spread with terrifying speed. One by one, the fuel tankers along the immobilized train began to cook off in chain reactions. Each detonation was as powerful as an airstrike, hurling steel fragments across fields and sending plumes of flame into the night sky. The heat was so intense that nearby trees burst into flames, and even the metal rails themselves warped and twisted under the pressure. NASA's firm satellite registered massive thermal signatures within minutes, showing the strike's energy output rivaled that of a small refinery explosion. Villagers living miles away reported seeing the sky glow orange, as if dawn had arrived early, while the sound of blasts carried for kilometers across Bryansk. As the inferno consumed the center cars, Ukrainian surveillance drones circling above recorded the unfolding disaster in real time. Video showed long rows of tanker cars igniting like dominoes, each blast feeding the next, until the entire train corridor was engulfed. Social media channels quickly picked up the footage, and by the time morning came, images of the burning convoy were already circulating worldwide. But inside Russia, the scene was chaos. Emergency crews rushed to the area, but the explosions were too violent for them to get close. Fire trucks parked far back, spraying water blindly into the flames. Russian soldiers, ordered to hold the line, were seen fleeing across fields as secondary explosions tore through fuel trucks and support vehicles stationed nearby. Russia scrambled to mount a defense. Pantsir S-1 air defense systems positioned along the corridor attempted to engage incoming missiles. They fired volleys of interceptors, filling the air with tracer fire, but Ukraine had anticipated this. Decoy drones were sent first, forcing Russian crews to waste ammunition on false targets. By the time they realized the deception, the real storm shadows were already hitting home. Out of nearly 24 interceptors fired, only a handful connected, and those too late to stop the destruction. The saturation was overwhelming. Air defenses buckled, unable to cope with the volume and coordination of the strike. In desperation, Russian artillery units nearby launched counter-barrages with Smerch and Uragan multiple rocket launch systems, firing blindly towards suspected Ukrainian launch points. The barrages lit up the sky, but they accomplished little. Ukrainian HIMARS crews, operating under cover, immediately retaliated with counter-battery fire. Guided rockets locked onto radar signatures of the Russian launchers, and within minutes, 2 Smerch batteries were destroyed in fiery explosions of their own. Suppression of enemy air defenses SEAD drones followed up, targeting Pantsir radar vehicles. At least one radar system was confirmed knocked out, captured in drone footage as flames consumed it. Collateral damage spread beyond the train itself. A nearby rail depot was struck by debris, igniting additional fires in warehouses storing spare locomotives and parts. Several switching yards were destroyed, cutting off rerouting options for Russia's rail logistics. Worse, a secondary explosion reached a small ammunition shipment being moved near the depot, triggering blasts that echoed through the valley. By the time the night ended, not only had the fuel train been destroyed, but Bryansk's entire supply hub was crippled. For Russia's frontline units, it was a logistical nightmare in the making. As the night dragged on, Ukraine pressed the advantage. Their intelligence teams had not planned this strike to stop at a single train. The goal was to collapse the entire Russian fuel corridor feeding into Donbass. Within 30 minutes of the initial blasts, another wave of HIMARS rockets streaked across the border, aimed at Russian repair crews and emergency convoys rushing toward Bryansk. The strikes tore into roads leading to the site, destroying bridges and blocking reinforcements. Satellite imagery later confirmed that at least 2 supply convoys carrying replacement fuel were obliterated before they even reached the wreckage. Ukrainian ISR drones, including Bayraktar TB2s and RQ-20 Pumas, hovered silently above, feeding live targeting data to strike teams. Every movement Russia made to respond was tracked, mapped, and targeted. On the ground, Russian attempts to contain the inferno failed. Firefighters and military engineers tried to create fire breaks by disconnecting undamaged cars from the burning train, but repeated explosions forced them to abandon the effort. Entire teams retreated as fuel tankers erupted with enough force to throw debris into the air, like artillery shells. Civilians from nearby villages described the scene as a wall of fire that turned the sky blood red. Windows shattered in homes nearly 10 kilometers away, and power lines collapsed under the blast waves, leaving entire districts in darkness. Roads were littered with burning debris, and emergency services quickly realized they had no way to bring the blaze under control. Russia's air defenses remained overstretched. Panzer crews scrambled to reload, but Ukraine kept pressure with small quadcopter drone swarms, each carrying minimal explosives. Though not powerful enough to cause major damage, these drones forced constant engagement, draining interceptor stocks further. At the same time, Russian Su-35s scrambled from nearby air bases to hunt down Ukrainian strike aircraft, only to find themselves targeted by Patriot and NASAMS systems guarding Ukraine's border. By dawn, no Russian aircraft had managed to cross into contested airspace, leaving the fuel corridor defenseless. Ukrainian command declared the area a no-go zone for Russian resupply, effectively cutting Bryansk off. The destruction spread beyond the immediate target. A switching yard adjacent to the train depot was reduced to rubble when detonating tankers hurled fire into storage warehouses. Rail lines buckled under the heat, creating long stretches of unusable track. The surrounding forest caught fire, with flames spreading uncontrollably into fields that supplied local villages. Farmers later reported that livestock were killed by smoke inhalation as heavy black clouds blanketed the countryside. Even the Druzhba pipeline, one of Russia's key fuel arteries running near the Bryansk corridor, was temporarily shut down after fires threatened a pumping station. The scale of the inferno shocked even Ukrainian commanders who had anticipated significant damage. By early morning, satellite sensors recorded thermal signatures still radiating from the blast site, indicating that thousands of gallons of fuel continued to burn. Intelligence assessments estimated that over 20 tanker cars had detonated completely, with several more still smoldering. Russia had not just lost a single train. It had lost weeks of fuel stockpiles, and the infrastructure needed to move replacements quickly. This was no ordinary strike. It was a targeted dismantling of Russia's logistical backbone, carried out with surgical precision. By daylight, the magnitude of the strike was undeniable. Satellite imagery showed twisted rails, blackened craters where tanker cars once stood, and columns of smoke still rising into the sky. Russian engineers struggled to approach the wreckage as pockets of fuel continued to ignite. The Bryansk corridor, one of the most vital supply routes to the Donbass front, had been effectively severed. Without its flow of diesel, Russian armored brigades and artillery batteries faced immediate shortages. Reports from frontline units revealed tanks left idle in defensive positions, artillery crews rationing shells, and supply officers scrambling for alternatives. What was meant to be a routine delivery of fuel had become one of the largest logistical collapses Russia had suffered since the beginning of the war. The impact rippled far beyond the battlefield. Rail services in the region were halted, cutting off both civilian and military transport. Factories reliant on fuel deliveries reported shutdowns within days, straining already weakened regional economies. Farmers who depended on diesel for machinery and harvests found themselves competing with the military for dwindling supplies. Even Russia's oil-rich image took a blow. Here was a nation known for its vast reserves, yet unable to protect a single train inside its own borders. Analysts estimated that the direct fuel loss alone cost Russia tens of millions of dollars, not including the infrastructure damage and economic fallout. Inside Russia, state media scrambled to control the narrative. Early broadcasts dismissed the strike as minor sabotage and claimed the fires had been contained. But as videos spread online showing massive explosions lighting up the night sky, the official version collapsed. Civilians filmed fireballs rising above Bryansk, their footage quickly shared across Telegram and other platforms. The Kremlin found itself once again fighting not only a military defeat, but also a propaganda disaster. For many Russians, the images confirmed what officials tried to hide. Ukraine could reach deep into their territory and strike at will. Ukraine, meanwhile, made no attempt to downplay the event. Officials hailed it as proof that Russia's logistical lifelines were vulnerable anywhere, at any time. Military spokesmen pointed out that each successful strike forced Russia to divert more resources away from the front lines toward defending infrastructure inside its own territory. Western allies also took note. The precision and coordination demonstrated in the Bryansk attack underscored Ukraine's growing ability to combine intelligence, drones, and precision munitions into devastating results. It was a reminder that Western-supplied systems were not just defensive tools. They were reshaping the battlefield by targeting the very backbone of Russia's war machine. The message could not have been clearer. For Russia, the burning wreckage in Bryansk was more than a destroyed train. It was a symbol of vulnerability, a reminder that no supply line was safe and no amount of air defense could guarantee protection. For Ukraine, it was a demonstration of reach, precision, and determination. The strike sent a signal to Moscow, its generals, and its soldiers on the front. Every gallon of fuel that powers the war effort is now a target, and the cost of keeping the invasion alive will only grow heavier. This was only the beginning. If it were you, what do you think decided the fate of the fuel train? Was it Ukraine's precision missiles hitting at the perfect moment, or Russia's failure to protect such a vital supply line? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Every idea helps us piece together how these battles truly unfold. If you found this video valuable, hit like and subscribe so you won't miss our next Frontline breakdown. This is Navy Point, where every battle tells a story. See you on the next mission.